Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our webinar. So my name is Dylan Gray. I'm the Sales Manager at IPT, and with me is Richard Brook, the Managing Director of Securicom. So what we're going to do today is take you through some security lessons that we've learned from working remotely. But before we get to that, I just want to position IPT for those of you that are new at the moment. So IPT is a managed service provider. And we basically have 6 pillars to our business. And starting at the top and moving down in the clock, moving around in a clockwise position, we have managed services. So that is the core of our business. We have a pretty impressive NOC, and I invite you all to come across and have a look at our NOC, where we do automated alerting, managing of network servers, desktops, patch management, pretty much any task that we can automate in a NOC is what we do with the managed services. We also have remote and on-site resources available to you to utilize on a contract basis or within specific SLAs that you're looking for. We also have a cloud and connectivity business. Specifically, 2 partners that we partner with is Microsoft and Amazon, where we can provide cloud services there. And then obviously connectivity being your fiber connectivity, radio links, etc., right around the country. We also have a unified communications division, which specifically is boardroom solutions and telephone solutions. And during this COVID period, during the lockdown, we've actually set up a number of customers to work remotely. And I think unified communications for us internally has also been a pillar of the success that we've had through the lockdown period. We also have an infrastructure side to the business, which is specifically related to servers, hardware infrastructure and cabling, data centers, aircon, that kind of stuff. So setting up the physical hardware infrastructure of your environment. A sizable chunk of our business is also procurement. And this is where we procure those laptops and hard drives and RAM and all the toners and papers and things that you need to keep your day-to-day operations running. We also have a single procurement model in here, which allows you to, or allows us to hold stock on your behalf, which thereby reduces the cost or predictable cost for your refresh cycled equipment, as well as keeping stock on hand so that we don't actually sit with long wait periods to get your stock to you. And lastly, we have an alternative energy side of the business, which is specifically around solar, wind energy, and the likes. So the way that we do have the problems that we've got in this country relating to power and Eskom, etc. Solar is one of the better forms of energy for us in South Africa. We have an abundant amount of sunshine, and it is a business which we are growing from strength to strength at the moment. I think the last thing to just cover on IPT is we're an organization with 5 locations. So head office in Centurion. We are then present in Bloemfontein, Kimberley, PE, and Cape Town as well. We also have some operations outside of South Africa into Africa, but that in a nutshell is who we are. Now, with that, I'm going to hand over to Richard, and Richard should be able to give us some fairly good insight into what's actually been happening and what they've seen from a security perspective during the lockdown phase.
Well, thanks, Dylan, and big thanks to IPT for hosting this webinar. And it's nice to get out of my lounge and into a boardroom for a change. And so, to dress up this morning, felt like I was doing something constructive. So to everyone that's made the time for the webinar, let's hope we get some learning out of it. And yeah, just a brief into who Securicom is for those of you who don't know. We're a global managed security services company, and we offer security services end to end across Africa, Middle East, and other countries. So without wasting too much more of your time, let's jump right in, and let's give you a little bit of a deja vu, and let's think back to March of this year, where the whole world got turned upside down. The entire global economy literally closed their doors, and with pretty much every country in the world going to this thing called lockdown, something we'd never heard of before. We became inmates in our own homes, and overnight our working lives went from something that used to look like that. As I said, it's nice to be back in a boardroom. It's nice to be able to discuss and talk. And we do have the required 1.5 meter social distance between us, as you can see. But boardrooms, aeroplanes. I spent 20 years of my life doing 100 hours plus traveling in a plane. And I never thought I'd miss it because I used to complain about it a lot. Open plan offices, the commute, this thing called traffic, that we're actually starting to miss it. Where did it go? But it went from this to that. We're sitting in our home offices. Do we actually even bother getting out of bed? These are photos from my team. That is my team on a Teams meeting. And we start having conversations, and we don't dress up. We wear hoodies and headphones and stuff like that. And the scary part was it happened overnight. And with this new home office and our new casual work attire, when winter came along, it was terrible. We had to put shoes on. So it was socks and slippers. Did we perhaps let our guard down? Did we perhaps find ourselves in a position where this was actually too easy? And what I'm going to try and cover today on this not too long presentation is what we saw. What were the stats? What actually changed with this new way of work, with people not being in a secure corporate network secure environment? So let's start. What are the statistics? So in the first 3 months of 2020, the phishing attacks globally went up by almost 700%. And this trajectory has not changed. The phishing emails are still there. We're seeing, in terms of email security detections, malware, spam has been overtaken by phishing tremendously. And the cybersecurity criminals are using this to make money. It's big business. Personal device use has also accelerated with the onset and becoming a standard of using Teams, Zoom, Cisco, WebEx, and the like. It becomes quite difficult to get your work done. So what we find is that people sitting, and if you remember my home office, you'll see that the laptop and the tablet, because what we'll do is we'll stream the live video or the webinar or the Teams meeting on the mobile device while we work and catch up on email on our laptops. So multiple devices, which means these devices are not necessarily looked after by the IT team. 51% of companies, this is a very scary stat, globally have already been hit by ransomware this year in some shape, form, or another. Whether it's your supplier that's been hit, whether it's you that's been directly hit, it's affected more than half of the companies worldwide. 65% of those infections are delivered via phishing. I often have when I do these talks and I talk around how you need to secure yourself. Well, email is where stuff comes in. It comes into the email, you click a link, it takes you to the internet, you download something malicious, and boom, we own you. And you get a ransomware infection, which costs money. 85% of ransomware, maybe a stat that's it's not surprising. If you look at our local landscape, most of the users are using Windows and not other operating systems, but 85% of ransomware targets Windows computers directly. And hackers attack every 39 seconds. On these slides, the recording of this will be available. There are links where you can go and see more information on these. But that's 2,244 attacks per day on average across the globe. And ransomware costs will reach $20 billion by 2021. Now, $20 billion is a significant amount of change. It's a very significant amount of money. Maybe a little bit less than what's been stolen during COVID, but it's still significant. And that's not just direct ransomware costs. That's what it's going to cost you to recover from a ransomware attack. And most of us know somebody that has lost money due to online fraud. It's either someone you know through someone or someone you know directly that's been taken by a spear phishing attack. It's been taken by a online buy here. You get a free, you can get Apple AirPods for $30 if you fill in your bank details here. And guess what? The AirPods never arrive. Okay, most of us know someone has been taken by that. So, and then we get the public breaches, and this is not a name and shame by any means, but these are legitimate published leaks of personal information and ransomware attacks that have happened and affected South Africans, and that's only since June. We're sitting middle of September exactly. That's June, July, August. That's 3.5 months, and that's a significant amount of information that's been leaked and has affected South African people. Do you really want your logo here? Well, I'd rather not have mine there. So the answer is probably no. But Why are we seeing this? Why are we seeing this increase in stats, the increase in breaches? Well, there's I can share my thoughts on it, and I can share some research around it. So remote work, and I've touched on this already, means that our corporate assets are not being effectively managed. Or we're using personal equipment that the IT department doesn't know about, okay? If you've got, you might be a bit of a gamer, and your gaming machine's a lot stronger than your company issued laptop. While you work from home, it's probably nicer to work on your gaming machine. You've got more screen real estate, you've got a proper comfy chair. Why would you use a cheap notebook? So we're not controlling the data or the assets across which the data is moving across securely. 21% of remote workers are letting family use their corporate devices for personal purposes. With the onset of online school, Google Classroom and the like, your corporate machine probably works a whole lot better than the hand-me-down that your 10-year-old is using to do their schoolwork. So 21% of these remote workers are using corporate machines for personal use. Now, is it your son at 11 o'clock at night playing on a website that will download malware? Or is it just, oops, I clicked on something accidental, then your machine gets infected, connects to your VPN, and oh well, now we've infected SharePoint, and IT has a hard time on a long weekend. And ransomware, I've spoken, is still very effective, not only to demand a ransom, but to enable exfiltration and theft of data thereafter. Most ransomware is not just there to do an encryption, get your money and run away. They will leave remnants behind. And those remnants that they're leaving behind, they are able to use that in order to scour your network, connect to those devices, and take your corporate and personal data. And an interesting fact is that WannaCry is still the most prevalent ransomware infection worldwide, with 19% of 2020's ransomware infections being the WannaCry virus. And this kind of goes to prove my first point, is that you're not effectively controlling your corporate assets, because Windows released a patch on the 14th of March, 2017, that if you've got that patch on your machine, WannaCry cannot infect you. But 19% globally is still WannaCry. Are we missing the basics? I venture to say yes, we are. And why? Well, because security and your IT teams aren't looking after your regional offices. IPT has got 5 offices around the country. Those 5 offices, I don't know, a couple hundred staff. Now you've got a couple hundred offices that your IT team needs to look after. Now we look at your larger JSE listed companies, where they've got regional offices with 3,000 or 4,000 staff. Suddenly they've got, your poor IT team has to do patch management, security management, IT support across 3,000 or 4,000 remote locations. I'm not surprised they're getting it wrong. It's hard, okay? And to make matters even worse, 38% of staff in an average business is susceptible to be caught by phishing attacks. They will open a phishing email. They will click on a phishing link, and they will be infected. Be it ransomware, be it loss of funds, be it just a straight coherent social engineering, but it could happen. And my thought around this, and looking to the previous slides, is, are these public breaches, are we not maybe just seeing more of them? And they kind of were happening already on maybe a smaller scale, but maybe you're hearing more of them because papaya is starting to get some teeth. Your Personal Protection of Personal Information Act, GDPR's already got teeth. But locally, they have to say, look, guys, we've got a problem. 24 million of your personal records are out there in the wild. We kind of need to tell you about this. And the scary thing is it's not going away. A couple of things, a bit of research is most of the larger JSE listed companies that we operate with, that we work with, so a lot of them being our customers, they're saying that there's no way we are reopening offices. We're not going to allow the majority of our staff back into offices until a vaccine's available. How long is that going to take? Well, I don't know. How long is a piece of string? We'll have to wait and see. But that means remote workers here to stay. They're not going to let you go into the office. There's not enough space in those big regional offices to have social distancing and have it be effective. Many companies have looked at this and said, well, hang on, for the last 6 months, I've been paying all this money for these premises that aren't being used. Well, let's downsize. Let's half our floor space, create a hot desk type situation, maybe a boardroom or two, and everyone can just stay at home. go work somewhere else. It's happening. And to support that, in a UK survey, more than 86% of businesses have said, yes, that's what we do. They have formal remote work policies and are implementing this for the long term. It's working. Well, that's, I suppose, a matter of opinion. Also, homeschooling has become more common. Even from I look at my own personal thing, it's actually not such a bad thing. Let's do some homeschooling, because if I'm doing homeschooling, I change my lifestyle. And globally, cities are empty. Just watching CNN last night, New York's a ghost town. Okay, people have realized, why must I work and live in a city when I can actually work wherever I like? I can go sit on the place, and as long as I've got decent internet, which is easier to come by, I can work from there. And to make things even more interesting, we're seeing a big uptick in a real globalization of the workforce, where people are saying, well, I'm struggling to find work within my country. Work within South Africa, unemployment is hitting has hit an all-time high. But I can get a job in Dubai and I can still live in Centurion. I don't have to climb on a plane, be an expat, and leave my family behind. I can earn those maybe a little bit less money, but I can do it from here. I can potentially, and I was talking to someone the other day, very interestingly, where he's a software developer. And he's decided, well, that's cool, worked out some time zone stuff, and has a remote work full-time gig in South Africa and a remote work full-time gig on the east coast of the USA. And the office hours don't overlap. You can work 2 jobs now. Okay, how sustainable, I don't know, but it's there and it's existing. So remote work's not going away. As much as some people don't want it to, it's here to stay. So what should we be doing about it? We know what the problems are. We've seen the statistics. We've seen that this is here to stay, and it's a big challenge. We now need to put some things in place to make sure that we can sustain this as a IT and infrastructure, as an IT leader, as an information security professional. We need to start. If we haven't started already, you're probably a little bit late, but it's never too late to start. Let's embrace the present. But we need to embrace it as here to stay. Okay, let's understand that. Let's adapt our security strategy accordingly. Let's adapt the way our IT infrastructure works accordingly, and realize right up front that at some point you will be a victim. That's a hard pill to swallow. It could be for some people, but plan for it. Plan and put your infrastructure in place, put your policies in place, put your services in place in such a way that let's plan for the worst and hope for the best, but let's prepare for it. We need to then get back to the basics. Okay, let's stop worrying about securing data centers. I'm not saying that you should not secure your data centers. Please don't quote me on that. But let's make sure that we get back to basics. Prior to this lockdown, I think these stats are going to change. But prior to this, the 95% of data, listen to that, 95% of data spent 100% of its life on an endpoint. Whether that's a laptop, a desktop, a mobile device, it's spending 100% of its life, 95% of your data on that endpoint. It's going to get more, because if I'm not in an environment where it's easy to access my central storage, easy to access my data center, those who still have them, it's going to be a problem. So we need to get back to basics. We need to be focusing on protecting your trifecta approach. So it's protect the email, protect the web, protect the endpoint, but now we need to add an extra one, protect the user. So make sure that we've got the right controls in place, that when email's coming in, it's clean before it reaches us, or as best as we can possibly get. When I access the internet, I go onto the web, that I'm doing so in a controlled and secure fashion, or as secure as possible. When I'm utilizing applications on my endpoint, whether it's a mobile device or a laptop, which is also a mobile device, I know, it's not just antivirus anymore. It needs to be a little bit more than that, so that we can stop the infections from happening, even if they are so-called 0 days. And lastly, the user. We need to empower that user. We need to train that user to make sure that they can identify a social engineering attack, a spear phishing attack, a phishing attack, oh, this looks a bit dodgy. Let me not open this PDF from someone I don't know. Training is going to become a lot more important. We need to focus protecting the data on the move rather than at rest. That's probably one of the 2 of the key takeaways that I'd like you to take from this. Understand you're going to get hacked. Understand you're going to be a victim, and focusing on protecting that data that's moving around. because it's not in your network anymore. Then we need to still understand the network has to exist. So we need to adapt that security landscape to include these multiple sites. I spoke about it before. We don't have 4 or 5 or 10 offices anymore. We've got 2, 3, 4,000 offices that we need to look at. Let's adapt our network security landscape so that those multiple sites, those hundreds of thousands or tens of sites, can come in effectively. And some of the technologies we can use there would be your traditional VPN, secure software-defined wide area networking. Maybe we want to split up sites to smaller, create remote hot desks rather than a pure work from home strategy. That's something we're seeing. Multi-site cloud enablers. When I've got, this is the perfect time to embrace cloud services. It's a perfect time to use services that are hosted on the internet, but now we need to secure those, and there's ways to do that. And even your mobile access point network, your mobile private APNs, they've got a place. It's about cost effective. It's about extending that network so that it makes work from home not only easier, but more controllable and more secure, and creates visibility for your IT staff to get the other basics right, like patch management. And second last, I think, on this slide, is effective security monitoring has become more important than ever. If I don't have visibility, I cannot fix what I don't know. Where we've had traditionally really good network security, really good reporting platforms on our firewalls, on our switches, on our DMZ environments, where we can see traffic is happening and then take appropriate actions. If I'm not seeing all my traffic because I'm running, for example, and I don't want to get technical, but I'm running, example, a split tunnel VPN, I can't monitor the traffic going into Azure from a remote office. I can't monitor traffic going to a normal website from a normal office. So we need to have that effective security monitoring in place. And that's becoming actually more critical than anything else, in my view. And then we need to have a work policy. I feel very strongly about this point. User education is key around what your remote work policy looks like. And that remote work policy is not necessarily only about, it needs to include it, about the management of data and where data can be and what you can do with data, talking to using private devices, for example, talking to using private networks at home. But it also needs to talk about, guys, what are your new office hours? Okay, when are you actually allowed to, because the human factor, so user education is key, the human factor is important. You can't be having meetings at 8 o'clock at night. We never did that before. So why are we doing it now? We need to really look after that human element. And we need to make sure, and we need to make sure that our remote workers have the tools to be able to make them the first line against the cyber criminals. So that when they understand, this is how I need to work, this is what the tools I have to work with, that they are able to then properly spot a social engineering attack. They're able to properly spot a phishing email, a dodgy website, whatever the case is, a phone call where they think they're being sold something, but they're actually not. We need to give those tools to the people, and not only to our end users, but also to our IT teams. It's how can we expect them to kill the WannaCry ransomware if we don't have the tools to be able to connect and patch machines? Okay, so to thank you all for attending this session today, and it's been quite short and sweet. What I want to do is we're going to offer you a free employee risk assessment, and yes, it's free. There's no strings attached, and we'd like to talk you through it, and we'd like to help you. And it's not onerous. So what we're going to do is the first thing we'll do is we're going to run a dark web scan, and we're going to tell you which of your users have already been exposed. Can we fix that after the fact? No, we can't. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We can't. It's out there. Those records are out there. We can then advise you around what to do after the fact and how you can stop it from being a problem, but they're out there, and we'll give you that list. We'll then run a simulated phishing exercise, and we'll show you which of your users need help. Which of your users are at risk? Are you in that 38% window where almost half of your users are susceptible and will do something naughty? Or are you actually okay? Well, let's hope you are. We'll then give you a one-pager. It's not going to be not boring, it's to the point, short to the point, and we'll present that to you via either an online meeting, or if your offices are open, I'd love to see you in person, and I think my team would love to get out their house. COVID protocols will be observed and social distancing. Okay, but we want to give that to you. And then because you're on this webinar and you've managed to sit it out to the end and listen to me, and we appreciate that so much, we'll offer you an optional 30-day endpoint security assessment. And that endpoint security assessment really would be either on all your endpoints or a section of your endpoints, just to see how effective your controls are that you have at the moment. And remember, those are the controls that I spoke to, which we feel are very critical at this point. And it's your email, your web, your endpoint, and your user. What is happening? How's that working? And that will give you a concise report on where you are. And then we'd love the opportunity to talk around your other security needs and how we can assist you. So I think that's the last slide, Dylan.
Fantastic. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Just a last thought from my side, guys. It's very difficult presenting to a wall and a screen without seeing our audience, and hopefully we have achieved the objective just to inform you. Would appreciate any questions. If you've got any questions, we'll hang around for a bit. I do have a laptop open here waiting for any questions from you. I'll also prove to us that we were presenting to an audience and not just to a screen. So if you've got any questions, fire away. If you're looking for more information on the risk assessments, please get hold of me. If you're from LinkedIn, drop me a message on LinkedIn. If you've got my details, just contact me directly and I'll get you in touch with the right people. So if there are any questions, we'll wait for them.
You guys are welcome to say hi.
Please. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any questions.
Great.
Thank you very much, everybody. With that, I think we'll conclude the webinar. Thanks for joining, and we will catch up with you hopefully in the near future. Cheers for now.
Thanks for your time. Hope to see you in person soon. Cheers.